Hello everyone. Today we are going to see our next module, that is the animal tissue. Now there are different types of tissues which are present in our body. So out of that we'll take the first one, that is epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue basically covers all body surfaces. Okay, they lines all the organs and the major tissues of the all the glands. The the first side is exposed to open space always, and underside this tissue is attached to connective tissue by a thin non-cellular basement membrane. These epithelial tissue lacks blood vessels. They feed by diffusion. They feed by diffusion means they get their nutrition from the diffusion from well vascularized connective tissue. They reproduce rapidly and they tightly packaged. Okay, and they are very good barrier in between skin and lining of mouth. They are involved in secretion, absorption, excretion, and sensory reception. There are different types of epithelial tissues or epithelial cells. The first one is simple squamous epithelium. If you are able to see, these two diagrams states us that how exactly these simple squamous epithelium looks like. Is it? So I'll just down here. This is the sheet-like a structure, right? The cells are compressed or they are in such a state that they are sheet-like a structure which are present over here. Okay, and the basement of membrane is there. You can see. So they are first of all, these is the layer thin and flattened. Okay, sometimes they are broad with the thin nucleus which is present in between them. Okay, the things passes through these cells easily with the help of diffusion and filtration process. They can be easily damaged due to any external uh, uh, what do we call the exposure to toxic uh, content, exposure to acids, bases, exposure to high temperature or cold temperature. They get immediately damaged. We can found these squamous epithelium in alveoli, capillary of walls or capillary walls, right? The blood vessels, then lymph vessels, okay, and body cavities. The actual picture of these cells, these are looks like this. You can see that they are stained with some chromophoric dye so that we can able to see even nucleus also. Sometimes this is the slide which is stained with the Giemsa stain. Okay. Next one is simple cuboidal epithelium. Now, what is simple cuboidal epithelium tissue? A simple cuboidal epithelium. They are the again sheet-like a structure, but see they are not that much thin. They are cuboidal in shape. Is it? They are actually in the cuboidal shape. So this is the cuboidal shape, right? So tissue wraps to form tubules and ducts of the gland. So these sheets can become a wrapping or circularizing the tubules or ducts of or the cavities of body, and then they form such a structure. What are the characteristics? The thin layer, tube-shaped cells are there. They are central and spherical nucleus present in between them. Where they are present? They are present in ovaries, they are present in kidney tubules, they are having a glandular duct. Glandular duct means where the hormonal liver or in pituitary gland they are present, like salivary, thyroid, pancreas, liver. These cells are present. These cells particularly are able to secrete secretions or proteins, lipids, moieties, and so we can call them as the hormones. They are present in kidneys in the form of like they can absorb the ions which is released. Okay. The next one is simple columnar epithelium. In the simple columnar epithelium, they are elongated, thin layer, nuclei located near basement of the membrane on about the same level. You can see that these cells, simple columnar, these single cells are present. And these cells, you can see these cells, the nucleus is present at the basement of the cell. These are the nucleus, and you can see the actual structure of these cells. Is it? So actual structure of these cells are looks like this. Okay, apical surface may have microvilli in the intestine or ciliated bodies. Okay, they are present in the uterus, lined with in the uterus. Most organs of digestive tracts. They are thick, protective of underlying structures. It secretes digestive fluids. They absorb nutrients as well. And microvilli is present, as I told you, in the intestine. They can have a goblet cells embedded. Now what these goblet cells means, the goblet cells secrete some secretions. They are secretory cells, right? They secrete mucus onto the surface. Next type is pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Now what is pseudostratified columnar epithelium? You can see here the image is they are ciliated. These are cilia. These is a hair-like projections are there, and these pseudocolumnar, that means they looks like the columnar epithelium, but they are not columnar epithelium, they are pseudo. Okay, the false columnar epithelium, these cells, they appeared as a layer but not a nuclei stacked at the different level, often found with the cilia, goblet cells scattered throughout the body. The lines basically respiratory tract and reproductive tract. Okay. Next type is stratified squamous epithelium. Now, what is stratified squamous epithelium? You can see that the linings of these cells are present over here. This is called it as stratified squamous epithelium. They are thick, composed of several layers. The cell division occurs at the deeper layer. The older cells get pushed out, or they get just after their death, they just pushed out of the organ. Okay. So this is the squamous epithelium layer, whatever it is, these presence. Okay, they are actually present in epidermis of the cells. They actually present in the mouth, throat, vagina, and anus. In epidermis, the keratin component, it is a tough protein. It causes old cells to harden and die, forming a protective layer. So sometimes these cells, these stratified squamous epithelium, they line with the upper layer of our skin and they coat with the keratin kind of component, okay? So that the dead cells coat with the keratin and forming a protective layer. So the internal cells won't be able to damage due to external forces, okay, or any shock or toxic, uh, uh, what do we call the exposure. Keratinization causes cells to become tough, okay, and dry. These keeps water inside the body only, chemicals or microbes and outside, right? Stratified cuboidal epithelium. Now, what is stratified cuboidal epithelium? You can see that this is the transfer section of the duct, okay, and few ducts are actually occupied with such a cuboidal epithelium cell lines, which is actually like a sweat gland, or these glands, sweat glands, they are actually having a stratified cuboidal epithelium cells. They have 2 to 3 layers which lines a lumen, okay, line larger ducts like a mammary gland, sweat gland, or salivary gland, or a pancreas. Also found linings in the ovarian follicles or seminiferous tubules in testes. Next one, how exactly the stratified columnar epithelium looks like this one. Layers of cells is a present. You can see the layers of the cells is a present. Superficial, shallow cells are elongated. They are deeper cells or the basal layer, and they are cuboidal. Found in male urethra or vasa difference in the testes or parts of the pharynx. There is a difference in between stratified columnar epithelium and stratified cuboidal epithelium. The columnar epithelium is actually the columnar cells. They are looks like columnar cells, and cuboidal epithelium they are stacked above one another like this way. So they make a protective sheath also, and these are having a secretory function. Next one is transitional epithelium. What is transitional epithelium? Transitional epithelium changes in response to tension or when there is a stretching of the tissue. The inner lining of bladder cells are present, and lining of urinary passage in the penis or in the vagina, these cells are present. Okay, you can see this transitional epithelium. These cells which is just superficially present, these are transitional epithelium cells. Several layers of cuboidal cells are actually transitional epithelium cells. They are flat in a shape and cuboidal when they are relaxed. They keeps urine in the urinary bladder, so they have such a function to hold the material inside. So they are having a contraction relaxation property. The next one is glandular epithelium. These glandular epithelium cells, they are specialized to make and secrete the product. Now product in terms of protein or product in terms of fatty acids. Okay, they are most found within the cuboidal and columnar epithelium cells. Endocrine gland secretes into ducts. These endocrine glands contain merocrine glands, watery protein rich secretions are there. Take example like serous cells are present in between them. So they secrete the watery and enzyme. They found in a gland in the body cavities. Mucus cells actually they secrete thick mucus containing mucin, glycoprotein in digestive and respiratory tract. The next glands are holocrine glands and apocrine glands. The holocrine glands, the cells burst during the secretion, and apocrine glands cell loses some cytoplasm during the secretion. Endocrine gland secretes directly into the blood. This is how these cells looks like. These are the ducts or the vesicles of the tissue, and they secretes their secretion. Connective tissue. Now this is very much important tissue. The connective tissue are the most abundant and widely distributed in the body. This is the maximum amount of our body parts is belongs to this connective tissue. They are named connective tissue because of their special function of linking and supporting other tissues or organ of the body. They ranges from soft connective tissue to specialized type of tissue, which includes cartilage, bone, adipose tissue, or connective tissue as a blood. In all connective tissues except blood, the cell secretes fibers of structural proteins called collagen or elastin. The fiber provides strength to the tissue, elasticity to the tissue, and flexibility to the tissue. These cells also secrete modified polysaccharides, which accumulates in between the cells and fibers and act as a matrix that actually helps as a ground substances for adherence of these cells. The connective tissue are classified into three different types. The first one is loose connective tissue, then dense connective tissue, and specialized connective tissue. First of all, we'll see loose connective tissue. Loose connective tissue has cells and fibers loosely arranged in semi-fluid ground substances. For example, take areolar tissue present beneath the skin. Okay, this is the figure how exactly these areolar cells looks like. Often it serves as a support framework for epithelium. It contains fibroblast. Adipose tissue is another type of loose connective tissue located mainly beneath the skin. The cells of this tissue are specialized to store fats, the excess of nutrients which are not used immediately and are converted into fat and are stored into this tissue. Okay, so I hope so you understood the loose connective tissue. Okay, dense connective tissue. Fibers and fibroblasts are compactly packed in the dense connective tissue. Okay, this is the second type. Orientation of fibers show a regular or irregular pattern and are called dense regular and dense irregular tissue. In the dense regular connective tissue, the collagen fibers are present. They are present in the form of rows and in between many parallel bundles of fibers. The next one, the tendons are present. The tendon which attaches skeletal muscles to bones and ligaments which attach one bone to another and is the example of this tissue. So this dense irregular connective tissue has a fibroblast and many fibers, mostly collagen, okay, that are oriented differently. This tissue is present in the skin. Can see that how exactly these collagen fibers are there, the red colored fibers, right? These red colored fibers, and how these collagen fibers actually holds the different tissues or cells within them. Next, that we need to see specialized connective tissue. The specialized connective tissue are the tissue of cartilage, bone, and blood. There are various types of specialized connective tissue. The intercellular material of cartilage is a solid and pliable and resist compressions. Cells of this tissue, like chondrocytes, are enclosed in small cavities within the matrix secreted by them. Most will see the figure A, figure B, and C afterwards. Most of the cartilage in vertebrates embryo are replaced by bones in the adults. The cartilage is present in the tip of the nose, outer ear joints, between adjacent bone of vertebral columns, limbs, and hands in adults. Bones have a hard and non-pliable ground substance rich in calcium salts and collagen fiber which give bone its strength. It is the main tissue that provide structural frame to the body. So remember, the specialized or these tissue, cartilage tissue is the main structure. It is the structure who provides the structural frame to the body. The bone support, the bony support, and it protects softer tissues and organs. The bone cells, that's what we call it as osteocytes, are present in the spaces called lacunae. Then the limb bone, such as long bone of the leg, serve a weight-bearing functions. They also interact with the skeletal muscles attached to them to bring about movements. The bone marrow in some bones is the site of production of other specialized connective tissue, that is the blood cells, and that's what we call it as hematopoiesis. The blood is the fluid connective tissue containing plasma, okay, red blood cells and white blood cells or platelets. It is the main circulatory fluid that helps in transport of various substances. Okay, so here are the how exactly these collagen fibers, how exactly these fibers adhere to cartilage tissue or chondrocytes and they maintain the structural integrity. And these are some specialized cells, which are connective tissue, specialized connective tissue, which is looks like RBC, platelets, and WBC. Next tissue that we need to see is the muscular tissue. There are three types of muscular tissue. The first one is skeletal muscles, second one is smooth muscles, and third one is cardiac muscles. Now, if you see the skeletal muscles, they are they are striated cells. Okay, so striated cells are present, and these striated cells with multiple nuclei, they are present. The occurs in the muscles attached to the skeleton. The function is very much voluntary. The movement of body when occurs, then and then only these muscles contract or relax. And these muscles is called it as skeletal muscles. You can see that how the striated fibers, how these patches are there. This is called it as striation, and the nucleus are present in between them. Okay, the second muscles, they has a spindle shaped cells. You can see these spindle shaped cells are there, spindle shaped cells. Okay, and each with the single nucleus. Cells have no striations. The functions in the movement of substances in the lumen of the body. So whatever internal muscles, internal organs are there in the human body, okay, they all contains the smooth muscles activity. The activity is involuntary and it is found in the blood vessel walls and walls of digestive tract. Then cardiac muscles has branching. The striated cells present in between, each with the single nucleus, and they occurs in the wall of the heart. Functions is the pumping of blood, and the function is completely involuntary, which is not in the control of human body, or which is not in our control. Okay, so I hope you understand these three types. You can see that how exactly different skeletal muscles are embedded to whole human body, so that human body will gain a proper shape and size, and they will protect the internal tissues, okay, from any external accident. Okay, these are the name of several muscles which is present on our body. Now, if you see in detail the anatomy of muscle fiber, you need to know these few terms. The first term is what is meant by sarcolemma. The function of sarcolemma is the plasma membrane of muscle fiber that forms T-tubules. Then sarcoplasm, the cytoplasm of muscle fiber that contains the organelles including myofibrils. Okay, these are the filaments. Myoglobin, it's the red pigment that stores oxygen for muscle contraction. So it is the second pigmentation which is present in our body. Okay, it is the second pigmentation which is present in our body after hemoglobin, who carries oxygen in our body. Then T-tubule, it is the extension of sarcolemma that extends into the muscles fiber and conveys impulses that causes calcium ion to be released from sarcoplasmic reticulum. Then what is sarcoplasmic reticulum? The smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, that means there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum, the one with the ribosomes and the one with the without ribosomes. So this reticulum, endoplasmic reticulum, is without a ribosome, so it is called it as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. They are present in the muscle fibers that stores calcium ions. The next one is myofibrils, a bundle of myofilaments that contracts or relax. This is called myofibril. Then myofilament, it is an actin or myosin filament whose structure and function accounts for muscles. It's the unit muscles. Okay, myofilament. The unit structure of any muscle tissue is myofilament, not sarcolemma, sarcoplasm, or myofibril. It's the myofilament, the function that account for muscle striation and contraction. Next. Now, why don't muscle cells use hemoglobin? A very short answer. The hemoglobin is the primary transport of pigment of oxygen in the bloodstream. However, when the temperature increases in the tissue, the pH becomes more acidic and the hemoglobin loses its ability to bind oxygen molecule. This is where myoglobin comes in, like the hemoglobin, and myoglobin binds oxygen molecule. Okay. However, myoglobin has a higher affinity for oxygen than the hemoglobin. Higher affinity means the efficiency to attach with the oxygen is more than that of the hemoglobin. So when you exercise or use the muscle group, the increase in the temperature causes the oxygen in the hemoglobin to be transferred to myoglobin of the muscle cells. This allows for an efficient transfer of oxygen to those muscles that are actively contracting. This is the detailed structure of muscle. You can see that how exactly muscle fibers are attached. You can see over here, first of all, the muscle contains bundle of muscles fiber, and the muscle fiber has many myofibrils. So this is the tendon which is attached to the bony structure, osteocytic cells. The tendons is now attached to muscle tissue, and this muscle tissue is having few bundles. If you cut down or if you take a transfer section of these muscles, there are group of bundles are present. If you extract the single bundle, this is called it as bundle of muscle cells of the fiber, and these whole group is made up of so many fibers. If you take a transfer section of this fiber, you'll able to see there are group of myofibril filaments are present, and these myofibrils, now if you extend their structure, then you will able to see that the myofibrils is having an exterior coat, okay, external coat, and it is called it as sarcolemma. Now whatever muscle fibers are there, myofibrils are there, they are situated, okay, inside the sarcolemma. Now see, the mitochondria are present in between these what do we call the myofibrils cells or tissue, and the sarcoplasm is also surrounded with them. Now how exactly? If we take out the single one microfibril, now see where is T tubule. Let's see. This is called it as T tubule, which is embedded in the sarcolemma. Okay, and these provides the actual contraction relaxation as well as a tubule who provides blood and everything. Now one myofibril, the one myofibril, if suppose if you take from the Z line, this is the Z line, okay, this is the Z line, and the other Z line which is just nearby. The complete filament of these Z line to this Z line is called it as one sarcomere. It's a unit of muscle fiber, and this bundle is called it as one myofibril containing so many sarcomeres. So myofibril is having a multiple sarcomere, but one sarcomere contains no extra myofibril. Just remember. Now what is one myofibril? One myofibril is made up of so many myofilament. Okay, now we'll see next the myofilament. Now these myofilament, or one, how exactly one sarcomere looks like in the 6000x, if you see them in detail, you will able to see the striation patterns, striated patterns on them. Okay, now we'll see in details how exactly one sarcomere is look like. Now see, the sarcomere is actually formed with three bands, or we can say four bands. First of all, the Z line is there. Now there is a H band in between them. The H band is in between, the yellow in color. You can see this is the H band. Okay, and there are two I bands are there. You can see this band, these pinkish color. These are I bands. Okay, and the complete these red, these line to these line is called it as A band. Okay, and this sarcomere is a made up of myosin filament plus actin filaments. So these myosin and actins, they are embedded in between them. So actin is covering the myosin filament. You can see the myosin filament. Is it? The cross bridging of these two filaments are there. Now see, now the muscle is relaxed. When the muscle is in the relaxed stage, the actual structure of filament is looks like this. Okay, and when it contracts, when the sarcomere are contracted, then what happen? Edge band disappears. The edge band disappears, and what happen? The empty space in between these filaments, it just vanished. Okay, I hope so you understand the concept of this theory. Now this theory is called it as sliding filament theory. Now when muscles are stimulated, the electric signals travels across the sarcolemma and then down to a T-tubule. Okay, in turn this signal, that signal means what? The calcium ion flux. This signals calcium to be released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Now the muscle fiber contracts as the sarcomeres within the myofibrils shortens. Okay, when calcium ions released or the signal releases, the fiber is actually contracts or muscle contracts. As you compare the relaxed sarcomere with the contracted sarcomere, which we have seen in the figure, note that the filaments themselves remains the same length. You can see here in our first stage, the length of the filaments is remains same, right? The myosin filaments lengths or even actin filament, they are the same. Okay, so when the sarcomere shortens, the actin filaments approaches one another as they slide past the myosin filament. This causes I band to shorten and Z line to move inward and edge bands to almost or completely disappear, as we have seen in the figure. The sarcomere changes from rectangular shape to square as it shortens. The moment of actin filament in relation to myosin filament is called it as sliding filament model or sliding filament theory. The ATP supplies of the energy for the muscle contraction, although the actin filament slide past the myosin filament. It is the myosin filament that do work. Myosin filaments break down ATP molecule into ADP. Their cross bridges pulls the actin filament towards the center of the sarcomere. So what I mean, these myosin filaments actually works. They do have a metabolic activity. They transfer ATP to ADP, gain the energy, and they pull this rope. Okay, they pull these actin filaments towards each other. Okay, so this is an analogy. Think of yourself, a group of friends, as an like myosin. Okay, if you people are myosin and you are holding a rope, you are holding a rope and you are actually tied up to that rope and you are pulling that rope and in one side. As you pull the rope, you grab, pull, release, then grab farther along the rope, and this is how it done. This is the actual structure. And now how exactly neural transmitters or neural signals is been passed from neural system or from brain to the muscles, because it is ultimately involuntary. It is not involuntary. No, some muscles are involuntary but some muscles are voluntary, right? So this is how the actual structure, how neurons are attached to the filaments or myofibrils. Okay, so this is where the structure is. Let me show you the myofibril filament. You can see myofibril and the bundle of complete the fiber, muscle fiber. And so here the tissues are attached, or these neurons, motor neurons are attached to each one of myofibrils. So how exactly it happens? You know the neural tissue, or we'll see the neural tissue, how exactly it works. They actually having a what do we call the vesicles at the bottom of axons. When the signal comes up, they releases these vesicles, and what is present in the vesicle? The neural transmitter, that is called it as acetylcholine, which is present. It's a neural transmitter. This acetylcholine gets attaches to the enters to the pore of muscles fiber or these tissue or cells, and they get the message. Once they get the message, immediately the ATP release starts, calcium ion releases, and contraction relaxation starts. So this is how whole signaling and contraction and relaxation of muscles happens. Now guys, let me tell you, there is a one very important thing. We peoples are every time, every day we are dying. The part of our body is actually dead body. So we are not completely alive. Why this is so? And that's why we are in the same shape as we are in after 1 year. To remain healthy or to generate new cells, it's all depends on our activity of the muscles. So the activity, that means the muscular activity, to stay fit, stay healthy, because muscles activity actually leads to maintain the oxygen level in the blood, and ultimately the oxygen level of blood will maintain your whole body. You know what happened after the death? After the death, actually whole human body don't die. The part of the body dies. Now which cells firstly die? You see, the cells which needs heavy amount of oxygen, they die first, because the oxygen supply actually stops when the exhaling and inhaling stops. Immediately heart muscles get stopped, and that's why the blood circulation stops. So immediately supply of oxygen to the tissue stops. And which organ gets hampered firstly? The neural tissue or the brain. So once the brain will stay alive for about just 5 to 10 minutes or 5 to 6 minutes. After that, it will stop its functioning, and the human body is actually dead, as we say, or the clinically it's a dead. But the part of our body or part of our muscles or the muscles which are having ability to take oxygen through fermentation procedure or to fermentation metabolism, because of that they are getting ample amount of oxygen at that time also. So muscle tissue stays alive, and this theory is called it as rigor mortis, as you all know. Okay, so what to do to stay in fit? So always, I this is not included in our syllabus, but I need to tell you that if you are in this age, in between this age, as you are in teenagers or you are above 19, you just take active vacations. You can hike, you can make a trekking, you can bicycle, you can cross country skiing, or whatever it is the muscle activity you can do. And after that you can also do such a different activities with the group, so that you can maintain your friend circles, you can stay healthy mentally also, and with this activity you can stay physically also. So this is very important to stay young and healthy, and it's a part of our lifestyle. Okay, chalo. Thank you very much once again.